right, man, we're here. I'm Chris. That's Dax.
I'm Will.
That's Will. And we are joined today by the beautiful, the lovely, the talented Ben Wood.
Here I am.
What's up, dude?
Hello.
Thanks for doing this with us.
No problem.
This is cool. Do we look good? Do we look as good as you?
No. Impossible.
Okay. Well,
This is true.
At least he's honest, right?
Ben's fashionable.
Impossible.
So anyway, man, what have you been up to? You're a drummer.
Yes, I play drums here in town for hire. A lot of live stuff, a little bit of studio stuff, and then I teach at World Music.
Yeah, he's one of our drumming teachers. And let me be frank, he is my son Roman's drum teacher.
Yes.
Did you guys know that?
I did.
Anyway.
You did know that or didn't?
I did.
Oh, okay.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
So I have a special connection with Ben.
Yep. He's got a good son.
Thank
Comes
you.
in and talks to me about
Can we just talk about my son?
the weirdest stuff on earth.
My son does? Oh,
He'll talk to me about Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, yeah. That's my son.
And just other like weird things. He'll be like, I was in the car and then it'll literally just be like, I was in the car or I was in class or whatever, and then it'll just be the wildest thing that he came up with
Yes.
in his head.
Yeah, that's Roman.
And I'm just
absolutely.
like sitting there like, and this is just all happening to me. And I'm like, what is going on? And then he'll talk for like 5 minutes and I'll be like, that's cool. So like, let's get your drumsticks out. And
yeah, he's gotten where he would walk up to like strangers and talk about, hey, did you know Fast Freddy Bear or whatever his name is got a new hat?
No, he's great though. I enjoy hanging out with him.
Anyways, but yeah, Ben's a teacher here, and I guess he's our first drummer on the podcast.
Yes.
And the last.
Maybe the last.
The only.
The only. Well, there's a couple of drummers I want to get on here, but man, you've been gigging a lot. You go on the road. Talk about that. What have you been doing?
So basically, since I've come to town,
how long have you been here?
It'll be 3 years in February, so not that long.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of long.
How long have you been at the store?
I got a job here the first week that I moved to town.
Wow.
I lived right down the street, and I walked in and I said, "Hey, I used to have 50 students at this place called the Drum Lab in California, and I was like, is there a manager here?" And it was Denny at the time. And I was like, yeah, I just moved. He's like, where'd you move from California? I was like, Sacramento.
Oh, that's where I left.
Yeah, and I was like, Sacramento. And he's like, you're from Sacramento? I'm from Sacramento. And then I basically got hired because my old manager, he's friends with my old manager. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So
awesome.
They apparently he called him or something and was like, hey, is this guy cool?
Nice.
And, yep.
Denny did not vet me at all.
Really?
Nah, it was kind of he did.
I like to say that I was the best decision Denny ever made. Possibly. Quite possibly.
Now Denny's unemployed. I'm joking. He's not. That was a joke. I talked to Denny tonight. He's He's doing good. So anyways. So like you moved here to obviously drum.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
to
mean,
do
teaching kind of. That's a lot of musicians that come here and
it's
teach.
funny because I moved here being with the attitude like, well, I'm going to have to sacrifice teaching for a bit, and then I'm going to have to,
Sure.
And then it basically got into the situation where I walked in, Denny was like, you're from California? You teach drums? Oh, I know somebody that you know? Well, guess what? I'm firing another drum instructor that currently works here right now. You want 20 students? Okay.
Wow, I didn't.
And that all happened within like a week of me living in town. And
not bad.
It was like insane. So I came here feeling like, oh, I'm totally supposed to be here. But yeah, my whole goal being out here is to just continue doing as much live stuff as I possibly can, because that's like my absolute favorite thing to do. I love teaching. I always want to teach as a part of my music career, but not exclusively for my music career. And yeah, so I play for different artists. Whoever will let me play. My eventual goal, like if there's an end game, is to play for a massive country, pop, whatever the heck artist.
Just a great gig.
Just a great gig. Big shows, very consistent, on the road a lot. I love touring. I love I love
Like you could just stay on the road all the time.
yeah. I mean, besides the fact that I would just like miss my wife or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I love it. Like
Good
some people are like, 'cause I've been doing it since I was 19.
Sure.
So like, when I was in a position where that stopped, and I guess we can get into my whole backstory at some point and just kind of explain the whole band and all that. But when that did stop, it was like a major thing missing, and teaching kind of filled that gap.
Sure.
But then I got to a place where I was like, well, I want to be more well-rounded and do both. Like, I don't want to just be like 100% on the road all the time and then never teach. Well, I'd be okay with that, but like I also want to teach as well. So
I got it.
yeah, but yeah,
Cool.
so that's what I do. That's what I do now. Just grinding, working as much as possible. I play for a couple artists currently.
Yeah,
and
you play for a country.
yeah, so I play for right now. I'm mainly playing for this country artist. His name is Adam Warner, and
Warner.
that's like kind of the main thing that I'm doing right now. But I also play for this girl Joy Beth Taylor. She's like a younger girl.
I've heard of her.
She's very, very. She's like a hit machine. She's insane.
I also heard
she's-
you played with Dax Penick.
Yeah, I've played with Dax.
I learned at dinner tonight that Ben's first in-town show was with me.
You're kidding.
We played for Lavella,
Yep.
which
Oh,
was Jenny's.
I know Lavella. Yeah. Those are those guys are great. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah. So
Yeah, but that's pretty much what I do.
nice.
To answer your question in the most long-winded form possible.
Well, this is the
perhaps.
thing. Like I always hear, teach your kids drummers always have gigs. Do you find that to be true? I mean, it seems like it just knowing you always have gigs.
yeah, but there's also dry spells.
Yeah.
I'm very open, probably because I just like talk way too much. But I'm very open about like, I like talking to musicians about what I'm doing and hearing about what they're doing, not
Sure.
in like a braggy way, but in just like
This is the way we make a living way.
yeah, I like a little bit of that conversation.
Have you ever had a gig
And
you
stuff.
hated? Like if some out-of-town thing was coming up and you have the flu or there's something going on and you just don't want to do it?
Well, when I was in the band, I would get like the flu on tour, and that would suck.
Because you were in a signed rock band,
I think
right? Like in
I think every time
California?
I've played Seattle, I've been like deathly ill, which makes me hate Seattle.
What was the name of your band?
It was a band called The Seeking.
The Seeking.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, but you probably now the reason you would hate, I don't know if you hate gigs, but it's mostly about just getting along with people at this point. I mean, the drumming is just the drumming.
Yeah, but I don't find it difficult to get along with a lot of people.
That's why you get gigs.
The only instances where really like even if somebody's like harder to get along with, the only experience that I've had is when people take the drinking too far.
Ah, yes.
And then that becomes like either I feel in danger or like
During
or-
the show or after the show? The drinking. Like people getting
maybe
too
just,
drunk to perform?
Let's say in life, the person is just constant in a state of
After a certain age, that gets a little old. Yeah.
yes,
Dealing with drunks.
yeah. But
That's bad form.
yeah, it's not like I've never been like, oh, like there's some bands like, okay, I play for this guy also, his name's Jacob Powell. And this is not anything against the other people that I play for, but his band, I love playing for Jacob Powell, one, because I love him as an individual and I love his music a lot. But his band is especially his guitarist and him, and then he switched bass players, but he has a new bass player who is also a really nice guy, and they have to be the easiest people to get along with, like on earth. And so when on top of that, when you're opening for bands like Cadillac 3 and Leonard Skinner and stuff with those guys, you're like, it does not get better than this. You're getting paid
They're pros
to
too.
play big shows or like sold out clubs or whatever, and you like are able to hang out with these guys and just like sit in a hotel room and watch South Park and like completely get along. That's like the best. But even when it's not like that, like I don't mind it at all. It's just like, yeah. I'm not like picky about who I have to hang out with. I don't think I have a strong enough personality to where I'm like, well, I'm gonna clash with this person, and I'm definitely not the type to like get in an argument with somebody, even if I for whatever reason I was like frustrated with somebody, I'd just be like, it's not even worth it.
From what I've learned, just me being here for a long time and just knowing the people I know, the weeding out of people who are bad to work with is pretty. Things get around this town like a small town.
Yeah.
If you're hard to work with, you will eventually dry up and you will not work.
Yeah.
And I know that goes down to techs and anybody that's touring,
producers, even
anything to support the music. If you're not a good people person, you're just not going to get work.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that is very glaringly obviously different between LA and Nashville. I mean, there's a lot of things that are different between LA and Nashville, but one of them that's very different is that in LA, like practically everybody's awful, and they're like all looking out for
they're so vapid
themselves. They are that is a good word for it, and it's just so hard to no one actually cares about hanging out with you and stuff, but like it's crazy. You see these artists that have these drummers that are great drummers, but not like maybe as good as you would think that they might be or whatever, but they've just been like friends with them for so long, and they've just been able to hang out, and that like the hang, I guess, matters a lot here, and just not being like cutthroat and all that.
Sure.
That's not really a thing here, in my experience at least.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much.
Where in LA it's inverse.
Yeah, I think you're right, absolutely. And everybody I've talked to and deal with, that's the sentiment. And I've known people that's, kind of been nudged to the side too, like for whatever.
Yeah.
Drinking is a big one, drinking and drugging.
Yeah. Oh well, and then it's funny. It's I see more of that here in Nashville than I see in California.
It's more tolerable out there because it's more cutthroat and people just don't care about each other.
Yeah. But I just see so many people just like with drinking, especially here in Nashville. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny when I moved to town. I had a conversation with a drummer, and he is very well established drummer, and he was like, "Just watch the drinking culture here."
That's what he told you? That was his advice?
Yeah, and I was like, "What does that mean?" I was like, "Bro, like yeah, okay, I'm from California, like I know, like, especially in LA, everyone's doing coke and stuff out there."
Blow.
And then I came out here and I was like, whoa, because it's very pervasive. It's very pervasive here. It's
drinking?
not. Yeah. It's not like LA where
why do I feel like a hypocrite?
When people party here, they party. But in Nashville, that's all there is to do here is like drink and listen to music and drink, and you go to lunch with a friend and you drink, and then like you're drinking and then more drinking and more drinking.
Maybe that's how people tolerate each other.
Maybe they're all drunk.
Everybody's drunk. You're my best friend, dude. You can come play drums with us anytime.
Yeah, I don't know what got me on that tangent, but that's one of the most like it was Rich Redman. I mean, you know who it is.
Yeah.
It was Rich Redman who told me that, and at first I was like, that's kind of a silly piece of advice, but
now you've been here 3
think
years
about it constantly.
Sure.
I've seen so many people that I respect just like take drinking way too far, and I'm like, why? Why are you doing this?
Hey, bud.
But most of the
you play
successful
drums,
people that
man?
I've met in town, maybe it's because they're older people that have already been through all that stuff, but I'm surprised at how sober everyone is that I know in town.
Really?
That don't drink, that
Really?
don't do anything. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
probably because they're older
people,
and they probably all had
like
problems
been there and done
they
that.
had to.
That's true.
Most of
clean
them,
up
I
or
think,
their
are
lives are
sober
falling
because they
apart.
were former addicts.
Yeah, I mean, I just see a lot of people in their like mid-20s.
Oh.
early
Yeah, I don't hang out
30s.
with anyone that young.
Yeah, there you go.
Except the guy to your
Contrary
right.
to popular belief, Dax is not 21 years old.
That's true. I'm 40.
He's 32.
I'll be 41 in a month and a day.
When I met you, you were like 38 or 39, and when you told me your age, I could not believe it. I was
You do look
floored.
young.
Thank
Rachel's
you.
told me to.
Thank you.
I really
Well,
hope that I
I
look
mean,
as good as you when
I
I'm
just turned
40.
25, so
That's true. You look great.
thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
So you were in a signed rock band in California. You had the record deal. You guys made an album with Jonathan. Was it John Feldman?
We made a record with Colby Wedgeworth. We also recorded with John Feldman.
Like-
we recorded singles and stuff with
so like
John.
high-level rock guys.
Yes.
You were in those circles.
Yes, and Colby Wedgeworth actually lives in Nashville now, and he basically runs the entire Christian music industry.
What's the difference in being in a band from the ground up, on the road, touring, recording, all that at that level in the van versus coming to town and just purely being a hired gun?
So that, like all my answers, you'll find requires a bit of a long-winded answer, but especially that one because I think that that's such a profound thing. Like, why did I want to switch from being in a band? I get this question all the time. Why do I want to switch from being in a band versus being in a hired gun, you know? And the main reason is when my band eventually broke up, I found myself coming from a situation where I started that band in my garage when I was a junior in high school, and I like put everything I had into that, and I just had, even like since the time I even got into high school, I was like, I want to be in a rock band. I want to tour the country. Like I just was like, and then it basically got to the point where I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I had no reason to believe that I was going to, but I just made that my mindset. And I tried out people, and I was like probably way too arrogant because I was like, nope, you're not good enough singer. Get out of here. Like I'm looking for the right people. And so I literally like pieced this band together. And then we got signed like right when we were graduating high school, like by management, and then soon after a record label.
And y'all were on the road and stuff?
Yeah, and then we we were on the road before I think we still had a member that was 17 years old when we signed a record deal.
Were you guys in the van when you were on the road?
Had to sign.
Were you in like a Sprinter?
Van. Van, yeah. So anyway, so we did that, but like most things when you're young, you know, people are young and stupid, and what became glaringly obvious after about a year of doing it was not everyone has the same vision as you. Not everybody has the same work ethic as you. And so what ended up happening was a member quit, and then we got dropped by the label. And then I'm out here being like, what the hell? I worked my ass off for this.
So you were like the only one that wanted to keep going?
No. Once we got dropped by the label, I kind of called it on the band. I was like, there's no point now. We could have maybe salvaged things, but I didn't want to be those guys that were just like scrambling around. I think that looks kind of silly.
Why'd you guys get dropped? Was there like just turnover at the
drop
label?
clause. If one of the singers quit, they could drop us. We couldn't do anything about it. Ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. Us getting dropped because we didn't know any money, not a cent, because they dropped us.
Yeah.
And they don't have first rights of refusal on any other music that we create, which is
They're like
massive.
They just cut ties.
Yep, exactly.
Did they keep your masters or give them to you?
They kept them. That's why we're not getting those millions of streams.
Yeah.
That's why we're not getting those streaming checks. So anyway, so the whole point of what I was saying is that my mindset really changed. I had a huge wake-up call. I was like 20-something years old, early 20s still after all of this. And I was like, what the hell? I worked my ass off, and I had to depend on somebody else. And then I basically like thought, and so the first thing was, my initial instinct was I need to go continue taking drum lessons, because I had started taking professional drum lessons when I started touring, because I was like, I just want to just get as good as I can.
Sure.
So then I was just going to the drum lab in California, who is owned by Mike Johnston and then Serge Lysak, and just killer musicians have come out of that place. So I'm taking drum lessons, and I was like, okay, I just need to get better, get better. That leads to a job of me actually being able to teach there and whatever. But I at some point along the way, I decided I want to actually just be a hired gun, because then my success is only dependent on myself.
There you go.
If an artist goes and blows up their career, good for them. I'm going on to the next person. I've worked my ass off along the entire way. I've established a good reputation. I have a brand where hopefully people consider me a good drummer and a nice guy and whatever, and that carries on even if the singer has a drug problem or they get dropped by their own label. It's not my money. It's not my creative talent and time and effort. It's just me showing up, playing drums, doing what I do, traveling across the country, playing shows, and then going home and actually getting paid this time.
Was anything paid when you were in like a signed rock band?
We got a $30,000 advance.
For
which we were technically supposed to pay back, but we
But
didn't
they
have
dropped
to
you.
because they
Yeah.
dropped us.
Yeah.
Was that for recording or just like a living advance?
It was for whatever we needed it to be.
That's cool.
But I mean, that's not a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money.
Not a lot.
Well, it was split between what, 4 or 5 guys?
Yeah. So yeah, that was that was really my entire thought process, and that's like kind of my life code now. That's what I live by, is like I determine my success. Exactly the amount of work that I put in is going to be the exactly amount of work. And so at the end of the day, when I'm 35 years old or 40 years old or 50 years old and I haven't done anything in the music industry, I only have me in the mirror to blame. I don't have anybody else to blame, because that's my biggest fear, is for that to happen again to me, for somebody else to make a decision that affects me in such a great way that I miss out on an opportunity that I worked my ass for. So that's where I am. I still like being in collaborative situations, but and writing and whatever, but it
you're
would
cautious.
it would take a lot for me to be
You're
in
not
a
trying to
band.
put together
I
a
would
band
have
or
to
anything down
know that the band
I'll
was
be in
gonna
your
pop.
band, Ben.
Yeah, I would have to practically know that the band was gonna pop, you know. But even still, even
Didn't
if I
have
knew
to
the
beat
band,
around the bush.
even if I knew that the band was gonna pop, I would be like, why don't you guys just pay me to be your drummer, like per show, and then when you guys decide that you guys aren't rock stars or whatever, then you can move on and go work at a gas station, and I can continue to play drums.
Yeah.
And because I've been getting paid this entire time, so and it's working out okay. You know.
Yeah.
Seems like it.
You can't handle it. I mean, it's nothing you can't handle.
Yeah, and and the thing is that as much as I like the creative aspect, that's the other thing that a lot of people get at me about. Is like, well, we don't get to write anymore. You don't get to.
Right.
It's
You're
not your
super
thing.
involved
Like
with that
to
part
me,
of it.
I'm kind of just like, so what? Like, because I can write collaboratively with my friends. We live in Nashville. I could go do a write.
You can walk out the door and write.
Anytime I wanted, and you know, and it's cool. It would go nowhere, just like the music that I would write in a band. It would go nowhere, essentially. But I love that I get to teach and do sessions and play live, and I'm getting paid to do all of it. And it's
Hey, man, that's success, dude.
yeah, it's great.
You're making a living doing it. You know.
Yeah, and so my now my goal is to just continue to just keep going up from there.
I bet you probably like the way Nashville does a lot of the gigs too, where it's all just
you're-
weekend
that's-
stuff.
You sound like a perfect Nashville drummer.
I love
how it
I
works.
do love how I didn't even know that hardly till I moved to town.
Sure.
I kind of knew it, but then I like saw that even like very high end artists are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, if that's what this actually is, that's sick. If I could come home, you know, Tuesday through Thursday, Monday through Thursday or whatever, and then do the weekend thing, and then if they do the West Coast run, they're out for like 2 to 3 weeks or whatever. Like, great. But I don't. That also doesn't bother me, because I'm also like, if a 2.5 month tour, like, bring it on. That's the first tour I ever did, was like 2.5 months, with us being gone. I think 2 weeks before that recording, and then it's like 2.5 weeks, and I'm like 19 years old, 20 years old almost.
Where'd you record? L.A.?
In L.A. with John Feldman.
Okay.
Yeah, who did artists like Good Charlotte,
Sure.
The Used, Boys Like Girls, 5 Seconds of Summer.
And, of course, your favorite band, Blink-182.
Did he do Blink?
I don't know.
I think he did. I think he has.
I
He's
think
done
he
stuff
probably
with
did.
Travis Barker. It's not that I don't like Blink-182. I was raised on Blink-182 in some respects, but I just don't think that Travis Barker is the best drummer of all time.
Maybe the most overrated in your generation.
I see. That's the thing. I wouldn't say he's maybe he's overrated, but he's overrated as far as his playing ability. Way overrated as far as his playing ability, but underrated probably in his effect on the drum set. Still, less people talk about that, and that's what people should be talking about. People should be talking about that he almost did the Ringo Starr thing, where he put a drum set in every household in America, like how Ringo did. he made drumming a household name.
Sure.
You know,
He's just that
everybody knows Travis
generation's-
Barker. You know,
Mhm.
he made drummers cool again. You know, there's always those drummers that do that.
What do you think of Tommy Lee?
Tommy Lee, he plays for see, I don't.
Oh, he's gonna have a heart attack.
I'm not. Well, for one thing, I do not do well with a lot of those, especially like those
Iconic
80s like drummers. He's
Do you know who
I don't
Neil
know
Peart
why I
is?
want to say White Snake.
Wow.
It's
I
Def
know White Snake is
Leppard,
good.
right?
I
It's,
You know,
That's the one-armed guy.
yeah.
That's
who
Rick
is-
Allen.
Yeah.
Tommy Lee's Motley Crue.
Motley Crue, yes. MGK played him in that movie. That movie was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
I like that movie.
He's fine, but like
yeah,
he's nothing to call. Like he's just an iconic. He's as iconic as all those guys are because Motley Crue is iconic. But like,
He's the only drummer that popped in my head. That's
who
like
cares
known.
about his playing? I mean,
Fair.
does he stand up to like Benny Greb or J.P. Bouvet or Steve Jordan or like all
Steve
of
Jordan. Remember I showed you Steve Jordan?
all of my like Vinny Colaiuta, like all of my people
love
that
Steve Jordan.
dude, that guy can just tell a story
Oh my God! he's
between a
big
kick
drummer.
drum, a
He's
snare drum,
awesome.
and a hi hat. Like that's it. That's all he needs.
I have a question for Chris and Will.
All right, go ahead.
Do you guys think that you predominantly like musicians more, or do you like more like song musicians more? What like makes you drive faster? Like a technician or like a feel guy?
I'm both. I'm probably more feel. Sometimes if it's technical, it's just they're just executing.
Right.
There's no feel to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I like that too sometimes.
I like it if it comes together. If it's just like clearly, I guess thinking from a guitarist standpoint, if it's just clearly just like, all right, you're just taking it as far, you're just playing as fast and as high as you can go, and that's the point to this right now. But if it's like there's a beat or a chord progression behind it that's making it fit to be exactly what that needs to be, then that's awesome. But
Does Hank have his mic? Can he chime in?
The ever elusive
baby.
Hank behind
Caught
the board.
unawares.
We know you don't like
Could you
Metallica,
repeat the
dude.
question,
So
though, real quick?
The question was, do you predominantly like musicians, or do you like more like feel song musicians?
that would be like, do you like Ringo Starr versus
Neil Peart.
Neil Peart? You don't know who Neil
Well,
Peart
I'm
is.
gonna pick Neil Peart, but
Oh, you do know who Neil Peart is.
I really think it depends a lot on the context. I think in general, feel.
Yeah. I think what's cool is when a guy you know that can just rip
Yeah.
just gets in a pocket and just
Yeah.
and he grooves and he might just do one little thing
It's
different and but
That's
just
what I
do-
like is like when you just hear those little tiny. I mean, when you're going all over the place, if that fits, it fits. But
Sometimes restraint is the best
was-
tool in your
I
bag.
was talking about that with my roommate the other day. Is like the space between notes and knowing when to go crazy, but that's a small percentage of the time.
Yeah.
feel that knowing when not to play is just as important.
Exactly.
I agree.
Like a Joe Perry.
Joe Perry's like that, yeah.
He's a feel guy.
Do you like Neil Peartish? Who's some prog drummers that are just all over the place?
Let's see.
that you
I
respect.
almost have to go to definitely J.P. Bouvet. He's kind of in that. He's probably one of my favorites in that. Matt Gartzka, who plays
Yes.
for Periphery. Let's see who else in that. Thomas Lang.
Who's he play with?
Himself, I think.
Well, all right.
Thomas Lang is a just.
Who's the guy that plays with Guthrie Govan? Or you know that guy?
I know
I don't know. I'm so bad at that. like
Marco Miniman.
knowing who
Maybe,
plays.
yeah.
What about
Or-
Thomas Pritchard? Is that, am I saying it right?
Pridgeon.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's good.
right on.
He's good. Eric Moore, also another Sacramento area guy. Also another guy that's like kind of affiliated with Drum Lab. If you've never heard of Eric, screw Thomas Lang. I'm gonna. Hopefully this picks up decently. But if you've never heard Eric Moore play, it's like a circus. It's like the most extreme of like as many notes as possible. But he also plays for like one of the biggest Latin artists, or the biggest Latin artist. I forget his name, but
J-Lo?
I forget what his name is, or a Spanish artist. I forget who he's playing for, but he's like constantly on tour in like Europe and South America. He's just like, and it's like playing stadiums, massive shows. But it's like one of those situations where not a lot of people in America know who the artist is, but it's like an A artist in Europe. But
Yes.
Is there like? I'm just trying to find one of him. Maybe this. It's all live videos right now. See, that's
What's the name?
Eric Moore.
Okay. Hank, you like that, right?
Oh,
Nice.
uploading. But you get the picture.
Yeah, I
except,
get it.
except imagine when he really gets going. It's like,
Hey, I got a question for you.
yeah.
Who's your favorite singing drummer?
My favorite singing drummer.
Yes.
Don't say Nocturnus.
Well, growing up, I would have to say it was Aaron Gillespie. He drums for and sings for a band called Under Oath.
Right on.
You know those
But then
guys?
I met him. And it was one of the worst experiences of my
He
life.
was a jerk?
Oh, big time.
Really?
Never
Wow.
meet your
Big.
heroes.
Yeah, it was literally one of those situations.
I thought that they had like a reputation of being like really nice guys.
I don't know
What
if
happened
he was
there?
in a bad mood, but it was in a situation. I don't want to like tell the whole situation, but
Understood.
it was. I had and he could be a great guy. He could be a great guy. I
He was having a
personally
moment.
was in a situation where it wasn't fan to fan. It was more peer to peer, because I was with other musicians that he knew and I also knew, and he just
He whiffed.
tried to school me. He tried to sun me essentially and just be like, "Let me put you in your place." And I was like, "Why are you?" Anyway. That was
Oh, like he made a scene even like in front of the group and
Oh yeah, he tried to like he
Oh,
tried to
wow.
like embarrass me or show people how much more he knew than me
oh, that's brutal.
Weird.
in front of like a group of like
Wow.
6 people that are like either people I respect or friends and whatever, and I just walked away with it, and other people walked away from it being like, "What?"
I don't know who you
the
think you
hell
are,
happened?
Ben.
I didn't even know him, and he didn't even know me. He just walked into the situation, threw out his 2 cents, and then I was like, okay. And it was
Weird.
weird. It was weird, but I would still probably consider him because again I suck
A
at
friend?
this stuff. I suck at like I know who I like, and but
about
I
Don
suck
Henley?
at knowing like
Yeah, he sing. This guy
every
sings.
like I don't know the drummer of Journey. I don't know the drummer of like
He don't sing.
I know, but Aaron Gillespie does sing, and he plays very technically and sings.
Okay.
And not only, and the thing that I respect about Aaron Gillespie the most is that he manipulates the backbeat. He displaces the backbeat so often, and drumming is hard enough. If you're singing and playing, like try singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" over that.
Mm-hmm.
It's already kind of difficult enough, but now try singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" and have it be to this groove. And so your 2 and 4 are not your anchor anymore. The backbeat has been displaced. Now imagine also playing a double kick pattern underneath that and playing all these fast fills and then also singing these super high melodies, and then you've got Aaron Gillespie.
Wow.
So he's very talented. He's insanely talented. He was like one of my favorite drummers growing up.
Then you met him.
And then I met him, and I didn't have a good experience.
Wow.
But again, he could be a great guy.
Maybe it
I
was
didn't
an
have a good
off day.
experience. What?
Maybe that was an off day.
It could have been. And I'm totally willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. If he wants to hang out with me, I would still probably be like, yeah. Why not? You can treat me like crap. I'll hang out with
I
you.
guess Ringo is a singing drummer. He had
Ringo, too. Well, yeah. But
Oh,
I don't.
Peter Criss. Speaking of
Yeah.
Ringo.
He was
Mhm.
a singing drummer.
Yeah, I love Ringo just because of who he is. But I'm not like, I'm the drummer, so I really like Ringo from the
He's
like,
my favorite.
I love
Beatle.
Paul McCartney. I love Paul McCartney. That's one, and George Harrison. That's like one of those like the 2 members of the Beatles that like really make me love the Beatles. John and Ringo come secondary. Actually, John comes second, then Ringo goes third because I still can't stand songs like Octopus's Garden and Yellow
Who
Submarine.
was that?
What?
Octopus's Garden.
Those are both Ringo songs.
Did he write them or? Were
Yeah,
they,
he wrote them because the way that their records worked is I believe that they were required or
he had to have
the
like
band
one or
was
two songs.
the band was
yeah.
obligated to give
I've heard that before.
certain members certain amount of cuts because they were so specific about we want our royalties and this and this and that.
Wow, what a good problem to have. Beatles royalties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we split $1 billion, guys?
Michael Jackson, I'll take it all.
I know.
Oh, I'm gonna buy your song.
That was such
he bought the Beatles songs, didn't he?
no, Paul gave them to him.
Yeah, it was some weird.
They were
I don't
really
know
good
this-
friends, and then he gave them to him, and essentially, from what I understand,
I'm gonna buy your songs.
it came time to give him back, and he was like, "No, I'm not. You signed him over to my name." There was some legal thing that was going on that Paul was like, "I'm going to give you these because I trust you, Michael," and then Michael was like, "Wait, now I have the
Sucker.
Beatles." Yeah, essentially. So they
Paul is
they
a
had
sucker.
very harsh feelings towards each other
I
for
know
some time.
before Michael Jackson died, like Paul McCartney really did not like Michael.
Well, yeah, I mean, when somebody cheats you out of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in royalties, especially because he hung on to him. I mean, until he died, and then when they finally got him back, the entire music industry like collapsed.
Yeah,
Like,
it was like
oh,
it
now you
wasn't
can have
making
your
any money.
streams. You can have your streams on
Yeah.
Apple Music or whatever.
well,
Like,
they held out forever, right?
Yeah.
The Beatles did
mhm.
because of that.
No, they've been on all the streaming platforms for some time now.
Okay.
Nice, like
Well, I
2013
remember
or
when
14.
they weren't on iTunes for a long time.
It was a big deal when
because
It was
they
a big
they
deal when they
weren't
got
on iTunes because that was still going on.
Okay, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm going back. Probably when you were a kid.
Yeah. And I remember the day that they
Yeah.
came back. They came back on iTunes. The iTunes had a whole spread. You could get all of their discography for like $100 or $200 or whatever, and it came in like a digital package with all this extra footage and whatever. I totally remember the day that they came back on, and it was because
I remember
Michael
when they
Jackson
came
had
back
died.
on.
Like
I thought it had something to do with like Apple Records and Apple Music. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
there was a lawsuit
seems silly.
regarding that, but that was towards Apple Records suing Apple.
Yeah, it
the
seems sort of
company, but that had nothing
arbitrary.
to do with the Michael Jackson dispute.
Gotcha.
From what I know,
another reason not to like Michael Jackson. I told you
if
guys.
you guys,
I've been hearing stuff about him for a while now.
if you guys want to learn a lot about the Beatles, you guys have to have Brendan Lucas on. That guy is a walking
He loves the Beatles, man.
encyclopedia.
I mean, I like the Beatles too, and I mean, there's so much history there, and a lot of it's documented.
You know, I didn't get into the Beatles until like, I don't know, a few years after I lived in Nashville.
Really?
As part of my like singer-songwriter phase I went through.
Yeah,
And then I found all that folky acoustic
I went through a
stuff.
big Beatles phase like when I was in high school.
Yeah, I was so into metal in school.
See, that's why I don't know any drummers or classic rock bands because my dad raised me on like the Beach Boys and the Beatles
That's
and
cool.
like
Beach Boys.
Tom Petty and
Great, man.
Elton John.
I
and
like
that's
the
it.
Beatles. Sorry, I like the Beatles. I've never I still haven't like taken a deep dive in the Beatles. I have the songs I like by them, but they're still not a band that I can go like I know. I probably can maybe name 3 Beatles records just off the top of my head.
This is an interesting thing, and I was thinking about this
That's what's wrong with you.
amongst
amongst other things. But I wonder, we were talking, I always rag on Michael Jackson, and I always say he's such a global, just super star, right? Top 5 music stars all time, right? I wonder if there'll ever be a time where he will be like, because I kind of sense that with the Beatles, and out of all the big super groups or artists, they're probably the least deserving, but I sense their influence and popularity fading.
The Beatles?
Beatles, definitely.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't think so. I mean, it's different with this
I think
generation
musicians
of kids.
like them a lot, but like
I have
I'm
a
around a lot of young people, and they're just.
I don't know. I can throw on that drum groove come together in almost any drum lesson, and it
Yeah,
could work.
it's a great
that's
drum
iconic.
Your son
Yeah.
probably knows that song.
Absolutely.
I don't. Who knows where he's heard that song, but
Mhm.
he's probably heard it and he probably likes it.
Sure.
You know, like
There was a thing with the Beatles. where I don't know if this happened around the same time where they were getting their songs back. I don't know at all, honestly. But they had a Guitar Hero game come out.
Yeah, I played it.
I swear that's when the Beatles had a big pop, is when that Guitar Hero game came out. Because the Beatles have always been big. The Beatles have always been a part, I'm sure,
in our generation, certainly,
yeah. There was a pop
way more
after that.
I remember the night John Lennon was shot. That's how old I am.
What year was
That's
that?
crazy.
1980.
1980.
I was watching Monday Night Football with my grandfather.
In New York City?
He got shot in New York City.
Yeah.
I was watching Monday Night Football with my grandfather, and Howard Cosell interrupted the game to announce it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad said that he was in college or what. My dad's like 60 something, so he must have been in college or whatever, right? Or
Probably.
High school. Anyway,
if he's 60,
he's 60. Yeah, he's 60 exactly.
yeah, he's probably in college.
Yeah, they said that they announced it over the loudspeakers, and he said that like just everyone was crying. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember just sitting there with my grandfather and just, wow,
And
it was a
that's
big deal. I mean, he was assassinated.
Yeah, that's the difference between and that's the difference between the Beatles and any other band ever. Like when people are like, "Oh, which is like bigger? Like is the Rolling Stones big or whatever?" Like Beatles is the biggest and most. Like I say that they're the best band of all time because they're the most storied band.
Sure.
Everyone knows the
popular music changed with them.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean,
Just
from the
everything about it.
drumming
Rock and
to
roll,
the
pop,
melodies,
everything.
everything. The way that they structured their songs, they completely changed the face of music. And so
Absolutely.
people were like, "Oh, Beatles aren't the best band of all time." I was like, "Okay, yeah, but maybe they're like the most iconic, or maybe they're like the most important. Like, if you don't think that they're the best, and they are the most something, is you just got to find a different word because."
And John,
I'd say they're probably the
even
best.
post Beatles, John had become he was already an icon, but he had become this social warrior, probably the biggest social warrior in the world.
Yeah. Oh yeah, with his
You know what I mean? Like
in
next to
bed
like Mother
riots and
Teresa or
stuff.
Gandhi
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, he was a galvanizing person throughout the world. So yeah, it's crazy to think about it like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely.
Dude, I was having this conversation with Scott. All I'm saying is that we better not be left with the last Beatle being freaking Ringo Starr.
Oh my God, why not?
Because it has to be Paul. It has to be Paul. Paul is my favorite one.
Ringo's the best.
There's only one way to make sure that happens, Ben.
What are you saying?
Assassinate Ringo Starr. No, that's not how that story is gonna end.
I like Ringo.
It's not gonna be Ringo in the All Stars, and he's gonna be like 80 something years old, and then eventually just die. No, it's gotta be Paul's gotta be the last one on Earth, and then he like speaks some wisdom to us, and then he like passes.
He sends into heaven.
Vaporizes.
But every time I see Paul, he just looks older and older, and it scares the hell out of me because it makes me so sad.
I think Ringo's got like the greatest attitude though. He's like, meh.
Yeah,
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly. He's goofy. He's like whatever. I don't want that. That's not what I think of when I think of the Beatles. I think
heard
of
Paul tell this great story. Like this was probably like back in 2008 or 2009. He said, Paul and Ringo and was George still alive in 2008? It was before.
I think George died in 2003.
Okay, maybe what? But anyway, they had.
What year did George Harrison die?
Liverpool was named the cultural center of. It was like this big celebration. Liverpool was named the cultural center of Europe, like the town with the most culture. So Ringo and Paul
2001
went back to Liverpool. They had this big celebration, and what's the thing where they cut the hedges and they make shapes out of them? Well, they did it in the shape of Ringo and Paul, and so like a week later, Ringo's on this show in London, and they're like, Liverpool had this great celebration for you, and blah 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 blah, and did you like living in Liverpool? Would you go back? Nah, not really. And they said the next day they cut the hedge down that was in the shape of Ringo's head.
That's hysterical.
But he's always been kind of like that. He kind of could take it or leave it kind of attitude.
Right. Yeah.
Did you ever see the thing where he said he would not sign any more autographs?
Yeah.
The peace and love. I won't sign any more autographs. Peace and love.
Yeah, I think I've heard something about that. That's the thing about the Beatles. They're so storied, and that's what I love about them. Is there's such an iconic story. Everybody knows when they went to India and what the effect that they had on the music, and the story about the first time that they tried LSD and whatever. And it was like so many people know all those stories, and those are like such iconic stories. And no other band, like I'm shocked that we're in 2019 and someone hasn't made like a full like series of movies about the Beatles. Like
yeah, it is true.
You could make a 4-part like Lord of the Rings style, like high production, like the Beatles Part 1, the Beatles Part 2, the Beatles Part 3, and cash that monkey.
I got an interesting thing to pose to all of you guys. So, what do you guys think about this? Like the Beatles, and a lot of things that we think of as iconic cultural music, books, actors, movies, came out of the baby boomer generation, the post-World War II generation.
Yeah.
And because the reason they're called the baby boomers, there's more of those people in that age group than any age group on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever they think is great, which is great in a lot of ways, but whatever they think is great is going to be great tenfold just by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So you think if something like the Beatles came out today,
I think that
would it be as iconic and popular?
Well, yeah. Well, no, yes, also. And here's why.
Everything's so fragmented now. Right?
Yes. No star can burn as bright as the Beatles. Just as Michael Jackson didn't burn as bright as the Beatles, and no one could burn as bright as Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson
He almost burnt to death because he caught on fire one time.
Yeah, I know. During a Pepsi commercial, right?
Yes.
And I think in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they have the letter that I think it was Bill Clinton wrote to
what?
Bill Clinton.
I wrote a letter to Michael Jackson.
To Michael Jackson. I think it was Clinton or Carter or somebody wrote a letter to Michael Jackson, being like, "Hey Bill, or hey Michael, like hope heard about your accident.
Hey,
hope you're doing well.
Get well soon. We got to go with Jeffrey over to the island."
Yeah, it's for real. Epstein didn't kill himself.
Hey.
You heard it here for the trillionth time. Epstein didn't kill himself.
Michael, baby, I'm pulling for you, but I got to get on the plane. Jeffrey's waiting on the tarmac, baby. We got to do it.
I love people jumping into the news and yelling Epstein didn't kill himself. That's like
do you think baby boomers are saying that about their stuff, or do you mean culturally?
I just think by the numbers, like if you look at pre-World War II, like there wasn't like these touchstone music groups or movies or anything.
Well, but also the technology wasn't there either.
That too.
They were there. They were like in this cusp of time where not only were they inventing what they did, but the technology was being invented to capture it and perpetuate it.
And I think also too it has to do with the baby boomers hit like in the 60s. That's when they became teenagers.
Right, exactly.
And there was like this mass revolt.
Well, there was Vietnam.
There's a lot of
the
stuff.
world was more united because there was only television, radio, and print.
Yeah.
What could become ubiquitous became even more ubiquitous because there weren't that many options.
Yep.
We were about 4 billion less people then.
That's true.
When the Beatles played Ed Sullivan, there were like 4 billion people on the planet
watching it.
And you only had like 3 channels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now there's about 8 billion people on the planet and the internet.
Nobody will hit those numbers again.
You won't ever have the mind share.
And
it's all mind share. You'll never have that many people tuning into the same
exactly.
Right.
And in the sense of like the Beatles, not to discredit them at all, but the Beatles were so lucky in that they were the ones to create that kind of pop rock and roll music, which like, again, not discrediting the Beatles at all, but a lot of musicians, like upon putting together their first band in middle school, can play Beatles songs. So, and for this day and age,
I still can't play a lot of Ringo parts.
But you know what I'm trying to say though. It's not terribly difficult music to be able to play.
And it's not terribly difficult music to get.
Yes.
To understand.
And so in a sense, like, for something to come along and to be, like, that organic and to hit a note with that many people and to be that new, I think is almost unfathomable. It was unfathomable then to consider what it could have been, and I think it's unfathomable now to consider what it could be today.
It's a different. It's just different. Yeah. I mean, we could talk about this forever.
I mean, think about the Beatles and what they did versus like a SoundCloud rapper today.
But
I was trying to bring that up, not SoundCloud rappers necessarily, but I feel like a lot of the legendariness or uniqueness of the Beatles and their sort of scaffolding and like how they worked and everything is taken for granted. Because I remember not too long ago, Donald Glover compared the Migos to the Beatles, and it was like
He compared who to the Beatles?
Migos.
the Migos.
Never even heard. I don't even know.
Exactly.
Is that a food?
It's
it's a rap duo.
It's
Okay.
it's like a hip hop crew, and like I kind of see where he's coming from, or maybe he wants to bring up like that kind of community and bring it into light. But all
God, I
these
love
things we're
Donald
talking
Glover.
about are not compared. You can't compare them to the Beatles. Like
Yeah.
I just wanted to shed some light on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, when Donald Glover speaks and I don't understand him, I typically think it's because I'm too stupid to understand him, because that guy is
Well, he's a genius.
that guy is a true Renaissance.
He's
He is
closer. He's
entertainment.
closer to being the Beatles than the Migos are to being the Beatles.
Yeah, I like how you call them the Migos.
Well, I don't know. It just
It's
worked
just
in the sentence.
Migos.
Well, I'm so sorry, Migos.
The Migos.
Never even heard
the
of
three
I don't know
amigos.
who that is.
They're
rappers, right?
Yeah, they are.
But what your point to too is that the Beatles galvanized an entire generation.
They changed everything from the
You know
Yes.
what I mean?
techniques
The
in the
Migos,
studio.
who are they affecting? Like 2 million suburban
White
14-year-old
kids?
white kids?
Like yeah, like it's
a ton of them.
it's night and day. It's not
Old Town Road with freaking Lil Nas
Nick
X.
Riffle's favorite song.
Yes, you're right.
That song's tight though.
Hey, that's Nick's favorite song. He said he told me
It's
last week.
It's undeniable.
It's pretty tight, honestly. But that's the biggest song of all time.
Is it really? Like statistically, that's for sure.
Yup.
That's crazy.
I mean, I think at one time, "Who Let the Dogs Out" was the world's biggest song. You know what I mean?
It was the number one song. The most
At some point, the numbers don't
Well,
tell the
long
whole
well, that's
story.
what I'm saying
time
is, like,
number
we-
one.
You know what I mean?
There's more people.
Yeah, it's like what Dax just said. It's like how many more people
But it
now
doesn't
are
have
there?
to do with
Like
more
4 billion.
people. It has to do with how long was it at number one.
Oh, okay. There you go.
But it's also like one of those things too. Will it be remembered? Will it be like a?
I'll remember it.
It'll be remembered as a
No,
silly
'cause
novelty.
I mean, it'll be a novelty song.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that's I think hard, because I've thought about this a lot. Here's the thing that I think is hard for people to grasp. We already do have tastemakers that have changed the music industry and will be looked at as Beatle-like or Michael Jackson-like figures, and they're standing at number one still, and they have been for a long time. It's guys like Drake and Justin Bieber. It's them. And Justin Bieber, I think, is going to even further ascend into a higher level of stardom.
I agree
I
with
think
that.
with Justin Bieber, you haven't seen him hit Thriller yet. When he gets into like
I agree.
manhood and he gets into his own Thriller, right? I mean, there's people at all of pop music just copy and pastes anytime Bieber puts out a record. It always changes following
Last
him.
record was good. I liked the last
Purpose?
thing he
Oh
put
yeah,
out.
I saw his tour. It was great. But Drake, same thing. Drake, that guy puts out a song, a mixtape, a record. It literally changes the direction of where music is going. See? See, you guys don't understand it because
Yeah,
it's
I
not
think I
your
just had a
generation.
brain
But
aneurysm.
just as my grandfather hated the Beatles, my grandpa hated the Beatles. He thought they were stupid and dumb, not real music.
That bastard.
And my dad loved them, was obsessed,
And you love them.
and I love them.
Okay.
You know a funny
I think my
timing
kids are
thing?
gonna love Drake and Bieber. They better love
Yeah.
Bieber.
You know a funny
I'm gonna be pissed.
generational thing I always think of? Back when it was silent films that went to talkies, and all the silent film stars were worried that they wouldn't
Yeah, they
cross
had
over,
bad
Yeah, yeah.
and a lot
voices.
of them didn't.
Yeah.
see? I'm
But-
not going to
But
cross
that
over
just
to the
doesn't that
talkie.
seem bizarre now,
Yeah,
though?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, I was reading this book about, it was about the Wright brothers, but they were talking about bicycles, and they in the book they had actual articles written about from all these like really highly thought of people how bicycles were going to be the downfall of the United States. Kids were going to get bikes and ride off and have sex and have these communities and stuff.
Maybe it wasn't rock and
That's
roll.
what I
but
did.
The bicycle
It
that
was.
ruined America.
That's exactly what I did. Actually, I used to ride around on a longboard, like one of those long skateboards.
Those damn bicycles, they're going to be the end of us.
I'd come home after like riding 6 miles, like legitimately just riding around listening to music, and my mom would be like, "What were you doing? Who were you with?" She thought
You're
I was
on
like,
drugs.
No, seriously, for real."
I just know it.
Yeah.
Wow. How did we get off on that?
I don't know. We've been talking about the Beatles and just cultural impact for a long
All
time.
right. Well, I was going to ask you album with the best drum sound. 3, 2, 1, answer.
Currently, my favorite is I like it when a brief inquiry into online relationships by the 1975.
Nice.
You got a vote of confidence over here. from me.
Their drummer George Daniel, who is also one of their producers and songwriters. Oh, that guy's a monster. Everything about it.
Do you
the
know that?
sounds.
I don't.
Do you listen to the 1975?
I don't, honestly.
That's a great album.
He just dropped his phone.
Bro, yesterday you have to listen to that, but you have to start at the beginning. It's like watching Star Wars. You
It's
have
a
to
saga
go.
for
You have to listen to their black and white album, the entire deluxe one.
They've won a lot of Grammys, right? They've won
I-
a lot of Grammys, right?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I think that they're just talk about tastemakers.
right on.
The 1975?
Oh, they're so sick.
I wasn't even born
And then
then.
then they have this album called "I Like It When You Sleep," for you're so beautiful yet so unaware of it.
Right on.
Very long album title.
Word.
And then that album like transcended them into just like,
And you like the drum sound on that.
yeah, it's great. It's great.
Do you
I
hate
like
Superior Drummer?
Superior Drummer?
You
What
know
is
the drum everyone uses, like Superior Drummer, get good drums, all the bedroom
Oh,
metal
get good
and
drums.
App?
Like triggers.
No, like in Pro Tools and Logic, the fake drums. You know what I'm
You
talking
can buy
about.
like
I know
samples or MIDI packs and it's
Yeah.
Oh,
basically
okay.
just
It's
No,
got
I love
sound.
all
I
that
gotcha.
stuff.
I
That's
think they're
the George Daniels. They I mean, he has a semi-hybrid setup. I'm moving to more of a semi-hybrid.
No, I
setup.
don't mean
Like,
you playing anything. I mean guys making records and demos with just like Superior Drummer.
with like just MIDI. Just
yeah,
MIDI
like
drums.
just fake drums.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that at all.
I think is that how Animals as Leaders cut their first record? I think that's what your roommate
Yeah,
Pete
I
told me.
Animals as Leaders, Periphery does a lot of that.
Like where they just record the drums like
They
just
were-
like with the keyboard almost.
Yeah, I'm like, it's one thing when you can play that on the drums, but at the same time, I think what they do is they get an actual recording of the drums and they do that drum take again on like an electronic kit, so they get the MIDI file, like a MIDI version of the performance. I'm not 100% sure on that, by the way.
Have you ever had to do anything like that?
I've literally recorded records where I've punched in physically, like just punched in drum thing, like drum, like just MIDI notes, into like the grid, or I've recorded where I've played on an electronic drum set, and that played into the record.
Yeah.
And then obviously acoustic using like an SPDSX as well, that has like MIDI notes assigned. So I just
It's like a trigger
Yeah.
almost.
yeah.
Yo, when you say electronic drum set, do you mean
Like
pulling the
literally
audio
like
from that,
what
or
we have
pulling
out
the
in the
MIDI
lobby?
from it?
Like what we have out in the lobby.
Yeah, do you pull the audio or the MIDI from that?
They were it was MIDI.
No,
It was using the MIDI from the Logic session,
gotcha.
I believe.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, because then it was just the exact sounds that
It's
the
the
producer
performance.
wanted.
You can just replace it with whatever.
And
sample.
it sounded great. It sounded better than any other record I've ever played on.
That's awesome.
Hey, what are how many kids do you have at the school here?
It varies, but usually about 15 or so.
Who are they listening to right now?
Who are they listening to? Well, I have a very large range of students.
They're all over the place. Not
Yeah,
counting my son.
but a lot of
Not
especially because the boys are like the median, you know. The boys are like and the average age seems to be about like 10 to 12.
Mhm.
Let's say that's the average age of student. I'd say that it's like a lot of what, like, you got your Post Malones, Billie Eilish, Travis Scott.
Yeah, Billie Eilish. I hear a lot of the other kids talk about. her.
Yeah,
She's rad.
a lot
I
of
dig
that.
it, man.
I
What?
just saw
Billie
something-
Eilish is fantastic.
Yeah, she recorded
Talk
that
about
album with her
changing
brother in
sounds.
like a room like half the size of the stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beats. I don't. The
Why go to a studio anymore?
You don't need to.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah, the beats that she has on her songs are awesome.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of anybody else that kids might be talking about, because the thing is that they're not even like so like big on like Drake or whatever. They're like more about the
The SoundCloud wave.
yeah, like the SoundCloud and the bedroom producers and stuff like that, like all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
That whole wave of rap is like I try to get into it or try to understand it, and I just, it's all over my head.
Oh, it's so good. You know who my wife and I
RPG's world.
my wife and I who have been into is Hobo Johnson.
That's the one. That's one of the particular ones that I cannot get into, man.
That guy's tight. He's from Sac. He's from where
Really?
I'm from. Yeah.
Sacto.
Yeah.
I've heard his live shows are super awesome, but
I've heard that too.
the
but
Facebook videos are just not what I don't
just
get
watch
into it.
listen to the music. Listen to the music.
I should probably do
You
that.
should just
too.
go
Maybe
go
it's the
and
visual that's I'm
go
just
and
not
put
liking.
on his like top, like on Apple Music or Spotify. You can just look up all their top songs.
Right on. I feel like it's spoken word poetry with like a hip hop.
He does do like a lot of like this weird like he's like rambling almost, like he's like
It's almost
just
psychedelic.
half talking, and yeah.
Hmm.
It's a very Sacramento vibe. It's like, oh, this totally would come out of Sacramento.
Right on.
The only good music to ever come out of Sacramento. Just kidding.
What's the biggest thing to come out of Sacramento?
Deftones, Papa Roach.
Tesla?
I think so.
Tesla's not from Sac.
I think they are.
Are they really?
Maybe
I
I
thought
made-
they were from Los Angeles. Denny's from Sac, but I don't think Tesla is.
Tesla's from Sacramento.
But I would argue that probably Deftones or Papa Roach. Who else is from Sac?
That's it.
That's
Guess
gotta
there's
be
prob-
it.
I
There's
guess
probably some
Tesla's
of
the
them.
biggest band from there. I was right.
I think we're back. We probably got to wrap it up, right?
Yeah.
On the
Yeah,
cameras.
we got like. Yeah, we're getting
I'm looking
there.
at about an hour.
Yeah, we're getting there.
All right. Well, this has been fun, Ben.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thanks for
doing this,
having me.
man. I've learned a lot about you.
I like how this turned it into mostly us talking about the Beatles.
That's how they all go,
That's
really.
cool,
I mean,
though.
we
It just
Yeah,
always
just
goes back to
talk,
the
get off
Beatles.
on tangents and stuff. But
Cool.
we got a drummer on here, man. What do you think about that, Hank? Stove?
I think it's cool that we have a drummer. I don't know why
You
you're
still hate
asking me.
Metallica and Lars?
Oh, what do you think about Metallica's drum sound?
I don't care.
That was the answer we're looking for.
I don't care. They're from
86.
they're from the Bay Area, which is near and dear to my heart because that's also where I'm from because my dad lives in the Bay Area. But
like-
then you can start talking about some real bands. Once
Hey,
Do you like
Ben, it's
Exodus?
Green Day, Green Day, Journey,
the Bay Area music?
Metallica.
Get it.
Yeah, it's so, but
Huge.
it's so interesting because the scene there is so weird. Like you can't go and be like, you can't go and move to San Francisco and play drums there, and be like a professional drummer. But then like there's massive bands that come out of San Francisco. so-
Sure.
So just
interesting.
L.A. and Nashville, where you can be a full-time musician. And I guess
New York.
Vegas.
New York, I would imagine.
Vegas.
New York, maybe Vegas. Vegas,
Not a lot. I mean, there's
Vegas, you couldn't be versatile. You just have to be like a
Perpetual bar band.
Broadway style.
you
know.
might play polka one night. You might
Yeah.
play a magic show the next night. and-
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the sense that you'd have to be a versatile player, and you probably have to know a lot of styles. You're probably right about that. But like, you couldn't have a
It-
versatile career.
It's L.A., New York, and Nashville, basically.
Yeah.
And maybe Chicago, I guess, but maybe
Maybe
No.
Austin, Texas.
It's the reason why they call this place the Third Coast.
Yeah.
Oh, they call Nashville the Third Coast?
Yep.
Do you think Nashville's overtaken LA a little bit for music?
I
or
think so.
Does
There's a
everyone
reason
here
why
just
I'm here?
There's
I hope
so
it is.
many people here from
I
LA.
hope it is, because otherwise I should have probably moved to LA. LA was a better option, but especially because I like pop music more than I like country music.
Yeah, that's what we should have talked about. I was going to ask you what you thought of LA versus Nashville for moving.
I could give you my short thoughts on it if you want.
Go ahead. Give us your short thoughts.
Peel it down to about a minute.
Nashville is one of the coolest places I've ever lived. I love it. I don't think that there's any other city, including Los Angeles, that I could possibly imagine living. The people are better.
Wow.
People in Los Angeles are kind of bad. It's tough to live in Los Angeles because it's so sprawling. And the only thing that sucks is the weather here.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true.
I say that all the time.
But only in the winter. The humidity, bring it on. 110 plus humidity. Let's go.
All right, Mother
Yes,
Nature, you
please.
heard him. You heard him here. All right. So, Will, you got anything to end this with?
Stone of Sisyphus, Chicago is my favorite drum tone I've ever heard in my life.
Nice.
Badass.
Drum town.
Drum tone.
Drum tone.
Drum tone.
Drone tone.
I'm gonna be angry at you if you don't listen to the 1975.
I'll check them out.
They're one of my favorite bands
Right on.
Sweet.
I'll check them out.
and one of my favorite drummers. I should
And
have
you
mentioned
guys
him.
are playing with CBDB in Huntsville on
New Year's Day or New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve. Wow, that's gonna be a big show, man.
He's a
That'll
good
be-
kid.
That'll be cool.
Yeah.
He's doing it.
Absolutely.
We're doing it.
I can't wait for him to
Alright.
get really jaded.
Man.
He's
Hate
halfway-
music.
He hangs around with me a couple more
Then he'll
months.
then he'll basically turn into Dax.
It's true.
Dax, you got anything going on, man?
I just claimed my artist profile on Spotify. So
That's
they-
a big step.
I put a little bio there and some
Alright.
pictures.
Sweet. Hank,
Happy holidays.
Nothing right now.
Sing us out,
talk
Dax.
to me, man. We got a gig. You got a gig this Friday night.
Yeah.
The Nightmare Before
Nightmare Before
Christmas, which by
Christmas.
the time this airs, it will have come to pass. But yeah, I'm excited about that. All right, I think we're out of here, guys.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ben. Ben Wood, everybody. Thank you.
Does it normally end in a round of applause?
Sometimes. So we did about an hour. That was good, man.